necessary to our humanity, to our being, then we cannot say it's irrational. But what becomes irrational is a society that claims to be the most rational society on the planet, and yet it has the most irrational premises at its foundation. The premise that human beings can be controlled. The human being is a loose cannon on this planet. And we have to thank God for that. The human being is unpredictable. The human being will do things because he's told he can't do them, because it's impossible. And sometimes, because he was told he can't do it, he does something extraordinary, or she does something extraordinary that changes the world for the better, and sometimes for the worse. And that's being human as well. The ability to make human mistakes. There are people now who would say, what do we do? We've got this system. What John Taylor Gatto just said, it would seem as he's saying, throw the whole thing out. And we're told there's no turning back the clock. You can't go against progress. There are people that will say that. They'll say, this is human progress. You can't go against progress. And yet, one has to question the intelligence of somebody who recognizes that they've made a wrong turn down the wrong road and it's taking them to the wrong destination, and they see a sign. You see, you're going to a place called Paradise, South Dakota. And you turn on the wrong fork and suddenly it says, Hell, Arizona. You have to question the sanity of that person to not turn his car around and head back to where he made that mistake, because that's a sign of intelligence to make a mistake and to rectify the mistake that you've made. And if you can't do that, then you're stupid. And those are the people that are supposed to get the F's. Really, we have to question a society now of lemmings headed for a precipice, and nobody is saying stop. And the people that are saying stop are called radicals, are called extremists. A lot of people don't realize that some of the greatest, most celebrated people in these so-called universities, these higher centers of learning, were radicals in their time. Some of them were killed because of their ideas, burnt at the stake, put under house arrest. And then we can honor them. Like they used to say, the only good Indian is a dead Indian. That's what the Americans used to say. The only good Indian is a dead Indian. Well, now you can have Hollywood films in which Geronimo's the hero. He's the hero. The bad guys are these stupid white guys. We can do that now, but woe unto Geronimo when he was calling his people to rebel against control. A free people. A free people. Look at the Southwestern Indians. I want to take one example, the Anasazi Indians. They lived in a place, there's a place now called Chaco Canyon. Chaco Canyon, nobody knows what it is. But there was a woman, she's an anthropologist, who also happened to be an astronomer. And she was one day examining some glyphs up on a hill, on a rock, a mesa, that overlooked this site of these Native Americans. They weren't called Native Americans when they were living there. They got that title later. I've never understood why the Aboriginal peoples of America have accepted that idea of being a Native American. And some haven't, but some do, and it always intrigued me that. But they obviously weren't called that then. This woman was up on this rock, and she was looking at this glyph. It was a circle, and it had a spiral that looked, oddly enough, like what we now know as a galaxy. Galaxies are spirals. You see these pictures from the Hubble telescopes of these spirals, and you wonder about order. Why is it a spiral? I mean, why do you see that in a seashell? That same spiral down here on planet Earth. What is that in nature? The secularist word for the divine. What is it that in nature that likes spirals? In fact, our whole bodies are spirals. It's called a double helix. It's everywhere. So she was looking at this, and suddenly there was a flash of light that went right through this spiral from the rock. And she looked back, and there was a slight sliver in rocks that had been placed there, and she thought, what's today? And she realized it was the equinox. And she realized that she was actually seeing the zenith point. And she said, is this some kind of astronomical glyph? So she began to study it, no longer as an anthropologist, but now as an astronomer, which is, we have to ask, how do these coincidences happen? You have to wonder. I mean, one of the fascinating things for me in my travels around the world is to ponder the fact that you've got 6 billion people, according to the control paradigm's latest estimate. I don't know. Who has anybody gone and counted 6 billion people? But anyway, they extrapolate somehow in that mystical science called statistics, which I actually got an A in, and I can't remember a whole lot. I remembered a bell curve and a few other things about that, but which is part of the plan. You can take those classes, do very well in them, and they don't serve you very well later on down the road. So 6 billion people, each one of them has a bestseller if they could just write it down in good language. Every single person on this planet that's reached any age of maturity has a best-selling novel of their life if they could just write it down in good language. And the amazing thing about it is those other 5 billion, 900 million, or 99, whatever, they're all in that novel somehow. They're either supporting actors, or small-time parts, or extras. And each one of them has that going on. In other words, we have a cosmic event of incredible complexity going on here, which is the fact that each one of you is the center of the universe. Each human being in this room is the center of the universe. And right now, I just happen to be part of your experience. Each one of you. I'm just part of your experience. I'm going to leave, and you go back to your lives. And hopefully they're changed for the better a little bit, or we've learned something, or we go out to make some changes. But we have an extraordinary event going on here, and it took place in that moment, in that mesa, where this woman, an astronomer who happened to be a anthropologist studying these people, saw this flash of light. She happened to be up there at the right time in the right place, and she had the right tools to understand what she had just witnessed. So they began to study this Chaco Canyon as an astronomical site. And what they found out was the entire place was aligned, not just to the sunrise and the sunset, to the equinox. The shadows all reached certain corners in this building. And the moonrise, and there was the glyph work to determine moonrise and sunrise, to determine moonset and sunset at different times of the year. And one of the equations would take 18 years to work out. These were ignorant Native Americans. Ignorant Native Americans, savages. Savages. So they asked these anthropologists to say, what was this place? What did it mean? They're saying, well, we don't really know. We don't know what it was, but they definitely knew something amazing. They had very high astronomical and geometrical sciences to work all of this out. They asked a Native American from the Hopi Indians, no degree, no diploma, in fact, they just said Native American. That was his qualifications to be interviewed. And he was a simple-looking guy there with it. They asked him, what do you think this place was? He said, you know what this place was? He said, these people were people that looked into the heavens and they saw order. And they wanted to bring a portion of that order down to earth. That's what they saw. They looked up into the heavens and saw order. We used to say in this culture, before it was taken over, as in heaven, as above, so below. As above, so below. The idea that we live in an orderly universe, an ethical universe. One of my favorite statements ever by a theologian in the history of theology is Kierkegaard's statement, in which he said, if every human being on earth was let into heaven, and only one man was condemned to hell, and I was that man, then from the depths of the abyss of hell, I would declare the eternal justice of God. That's what these people were looking at. They were looking at a just universe, a universe of purpose, not an eloquent dance to nowhere as a leading anthropologist at Harvard University called Life on Earth. An eloquent dance to nowhere. A meaningless, random event of extraordinarily complex coincidences. Billions of them that happen to come together at the right time in the right moment to make this event. Why is there something as opposed to nothing? I was in an observatory, and I took my boys to see this planetary. It was at a planetarium, and you saw the stars, and we looked up at this dome. And here's how it began. Suddenly there was just a flash. And suddenly you were in all those swirls again. And the man said, in the beginning there was the Big Bang. That's literally what he said. The Big Bang didn't happen in any one place. It happened everywhere at the same time. And you know what my boys said? Subhanallah. Because they knew who did that. Children know that. One of the things Fakhruddin al-Razi said, if you take a rock and you look at a 2-year-old and you hide behind a wall and you throw the rock over his head, the 2-year-old will turn around, and if he can't walk, he'll crawl over to investigate where the rock came from. Why can't that 2-year-old just believe it popped out of nowhere? Why can't it do that? Why can't that 2-year-old just simply believe that it popped out of nowhere? Because inherent in human nature is the belief that for every effect there is a cause. For every effect there is a cause. And it starts right from the beginning. And we're told that there was no cause. We're told everything on this planet has a cause except the universe. There was no cause. Everything else has a material cause. You study any of the physical sciences,